Antonio, a member of the Teamsters. Antonio is in the Teamsters Amazon division. And Antonio, let me make sure, Antonio, this rundown, hold on, Antonio Rosario. And it's actually awesome that I have you on today because we got big breaking news this morning. The National Labor Relations Board, finally, there is a God. Amazon has been refusing to basically treat delivery drivers as employees forever. They get away with using them as contractors, and they abuse them just like they're actual workers in the warehouse. But the NLRB made an important ruling this morning about that. Can you kind of tell us what they ruled?
Yeah, well, thank you for having me on the show. We always appreciate having a platform to speak to workers and people out there that are interested in all the work that labor's doing. And honestly, you're right. It's been a long time waiting, but the NLRB finally came through. They came up with a good, strong ruling. Amazon workers are considered Amazon employees. I mean, let's face it, they drive their vehicles, they wear their colors, they deliver their packages, and they try to pretend that they're not an Amazon worker. I mean, when an Amazon worker saves somebody in the street, it's our company, our Amazon worker did this. But the minute that Amazon worker does something wrong, they're completely, oh, they don't work for us. They're third party. So I think it's time for that to come to an end. There's still some obstacles that have to be gotten through, but right now that is a big ruling for us, yes, and for the employees.
And you know what? I do a lot of time shitting on the Democratic Party, but I want to be fair. Biden did, I believe, help secure your pensions, the Teamsters.
The Butch-Lewis Act, yes.
Yeah, I should state that. That's obviously big. And Biden, although I think it's a little overblown that he's, Union Joe, at the very least, at least he stepped out of the way of the UAW strike and let them run the show. I know in the past, Democratic presidents, Democratic politicians have pressured UAW Teamsters to take shitty deals. He let the UAW and Teamsters kind of handle their own negotiations. I think the Democratic Party gives a lot of lip service for labor, but actually they're not exactly running on the PRO Act right now. But what's your thoughts? What is the positive that the Democratic Party doing, and what more do we need?
Well, you definitely mentioned it there. The Butch-Lewis Act was huge for a lot of us. The fact that Biden actually did help with the choosing of a lot of the NLRB people that are in there now did make a difference in a lot of the rulings over the last few years. They've done some good work. The people at the NLRB, I mean Jennifer and a few of the others have done some great stuff. But we're definitely, I see what you're saying. There is a lot of lip service sometimes, and and you're keeping it real, right? Like, listen, there's a lot of donors, a lot of big billionaire class people still supporting Democrats, and they're gonna vote in their best interest a lot of the times because they have a lot of money in their pockets. But there are some good Democrats out there. I'm a lifelong Democrat, and I believe that there are some changes that can be made, but personally, I feel that the working class really has to stand up in order to make that happen. These people need to know that they work for us. And, right. When the workers stand up, they'll know.
And I'd love your thoughts because I'm not, obviously I tell my audience, I'm not telling people not to vote. However, I have pushed over the last 2 years. I really think that we're kind of conditioned to focus on elections and, races because that's kind of, more urgent. But the real action to actually get structural change in this country is labor, even if you're not in a union, to support labor. Because if you haven't noticed, that's where we're actually getting the structural victories. It's not from like the squad or, name your politician. A lot of those politicians are running on X and going in there and folding like paper tigers. But the UAW, I mean, they should have got more, but that's not their fault. It's because of how far down they were. The Teamsters, they should get more, but they just got a pretty strong contract and averted a strike because they leveraged pressure. So I believe people should get involved, not just trying to organize their own unions, but supporting workers, because that's how you're getting, it might not be a higher minimum wage through Congress right now, but through strong labor unions. What's your message to people who feel dejected, are just nauseated by this choice between a corporate Democrat and a wannabe fascist? But, what's your message to people in terms of the mini labor resurgence going on right now?
Well, that's a very loaded question, but
I
a straight answer.
try not to, but yeah.
It's all good, man. I get it. This is your show, and I'm gonna answer as truthfully as I can. The truth is that it's all about labor. I mean, we keep this country moving. Like I said earlier, those folks, they work for us, and it's about time they start seeing that and stop worrying about who's lining their pockets, but worrying about who's actually keeping this economy growing and who's actually keeping this economy moving, which is us, the laborers. And there has been some talk about listen, I was part of the 1997 UPS strike. I was 23 years old, right? 185,000 UPS workers hit the streets, 15 days. The company gave us what we wanted. In 2023, I was way older, and here we are again fighting for more. Now there's going to be another contract and another contract. And where do we go from here? I've heard some talk about a 2028 general strike. So what I'm trying to say is, if these corporations don't start adhering to the demands of the workers, serious things can happen. And we, as workers, as laborers, we have the power to withhold our labor. And when we do, that can cause an economic crisis. Things like that can cripple the economy. And if these people don't start adhering to our demands and start paying attention to the workers, people that are working two jobs just to get by, people that can't afford to put food on the table, then they better watch out.
And, I agree with you, and I'd like your thoughts. If you see the flag behind me, it's not for dramatic purposes. I say we live in the United Corporations of America, and it's not really the politicians you have to protest or even hurt. You got to hurt their donors because they're running the system. If you look inside the DNC, I was shocked. Chris Cuomo, of all people, did a little monologue the other day. He had his cameraman point up at the VIP suites atop the DNC and say, these are the people running the show. Do you think the politicians down here are going to regulate the donors up in the boxes paying $500,000 for a VIP suite? So I think that general strike you're talking about, Sean Fain and others has proposed, many different industry sectors trying to line up their contracts to go on strike at the same time. If you hurt the corporations' bottom line, they're going to make a call to their employees, the politicians, and say, you got to start making some concessions to these workers.
Yeah, and that's the issue, right? It's time for them to realize that they have to stop with these guidelines that they like to try to have, or these rulings and legislation to try to weaken us. This is why one of the legislations like the PRO Act is so important, right? Right to work in over 26 states is ridiculous. They're doing this to weaken our unions' treasuries. They're trying to weaken the unions. They're trying to weaken the working class, period. So we have a very strong fight ahead of us. And I wish and I hope that working class Americans, working class people in this country are paying attention to what's happening, because it's time for a real wake-up call. Who really cares about us? Is it the Democrats? Is it the Republicans? Is it neither? Is it maybe time for a working class party? Do we need for workers to really stand up and start taking the reins? What's happening here? I mean, people really have to start to pay attention.
Thank you, Antonio Rosario, and also thank you for that thick New York accent. That really made my day. We gotta, yeah, we'll have to talk again because we more than most cover labor issues. Thanks for coming on. I really appreciate it.
Have a good one. Thank you for having me.